Hello and good evening. You're watching Awani Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. The government maintains that it will not peg the ringgit against the US dollar as it would negatively impact the people. Deputy Finance Minister Dato' Sri Ahmad Maslan says pegging the ringgit would cause Malaysia to lose its ability to continue its independent monetary policy.
Jika OPR kita sekarang ini 3.0, OPR Amerika 5.25. Jika kita tambat nilai ringgit kepada USD RM3.80, OPR kita perlu dinaikkan kepada 5.25. Alangkan OPR kita 3.0 pun rakyat sudah merasa amat tidak selesa. Ini kan pula jika dinaikkan pada 5.25.
Ahmad Maslan added that pegging the ringgit would affect the country's confidence and competitiveness as it restricted capital flow. He said the flexible exchange rate of the ringgit served as a way to handle external shocks while minimizing the impact on domestic economic activities. As such, the government would focus on implementing structural policies to boost economic growth and attract foreign investments that will support the ringgit.
Malaysia has climbed 5 ranks to 27th place in the World Competitiveness Ranking Report for 2023. The report by the International Institute for Management Development says the country's improved ranking was backed by its economic recovery and investment growth, among others.
According to the report, Malaysia's strengths were in pricing, basic infrastructure and tax policies. However, the country did not perform well in terms of business legislation, education and societal framework. The report also noted that Malaysia's main challenges for 2023 included talent development, adopting a digital-first mindset, sustainable development and regulatory reforms for ease of doing business. In response, the Investment, Trade and Industry Ministry said the Malaysia Productivity Corporation would conduct a regulatory review to address bureaucratic issues and promote a business-friendly environment. It added that the upcoming launch of the new Industrial Master Plan 2030 in August will focus on economic security, inclusivity and carbon neutrality, among others.
Extending the conversation on paid internships for students, Simran Rajkaur from Bait Al-Amanah urges prospective interns to manage their expectations and learn more about the role and the company they are applying to. According to her, this could help them achieve a more meaningful internship experience.
I think firstly, this interns must understand that they cannot and they should not expect a high remuneration from internship companies. This is a bit of a gray area because I feel interns need to understand that there is a very fine line between being entitled and also knowing your rights. So interns, whenever they're seeking for internship opportunities, need to be very careful to tread that line very carefully. Secondly, I think really get to know the company that you're joining and really understand whether this internship is valuable to your degree or your major. This is putting aside like vocational internships that are compulsory, right? So if the internship is really valuable and if it is unpaid, I think interns have the discretion. You can decide whether you want to take it or not. But just always make sure that if your internship is unpaid or paid, always clarify with the companies prior to accepting your role what exactly are their expectations. This is because, if you know that the position is unpaid, but what valuable training can they give you in return? Of course, this is only if you can afford to take up an unpaid internship.
We will go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Strong and Long Baharu menguatkan rambut dari akar ke hujung. Biarkan panjang. Strong and Long.
Mat, kau tak kerja?
Hari ni tak, Mak. Esok je lah.
Tolong Mak pergi kedai. Panas ni, Mak. Esok je lah. Esok kan boleh. Alah, esok je. Esok lah. Esok.
Kau ni esok. Kau ada daftar nama untuk korban tahun ni? Jangan macam-macam esok raya.
Tenang, bertenang. Lembu sekor gegak gembita. Masya Allah, semuanya nak berjaya. Jangan sampai bersengketa. Isi korban kan ada.
Apa lagi? Daftarlah sekarang.
Welcome back. 1 in every 78 people on Earth has been forced to flee their homes. But as they seek sanctuary elsewhere, many are still struggling due to the lack of access to basic needs. To mark World Refugee Day, we speak to Hamid, a Pakistani refugee, about the challenges he and other refugees face while residing here.
Our children, they cannot go to public school. That should be a basic human right that every child should have. That private education, private schooling is very expensive because of refugees not having the work permit, permission to work. They cannot make enough money to support their children to go to a private school, and that is the biggest challenge. Secondly, if we talk about transportation and all that, they are expensive, and with their limited income, they cannot. And another thing is because of not being legally recognized, they're always exposed to the exploitation by the law enforcement agencies, especially the roadblocks and all that. They get through that, even if they are traveling in a taxi, they are often stopped and being questioned and harassed, I would say, by the law enforcement people, that you are illegal, basically. It does give us anxiety when we hear or read in the news a certain minister comes and they talk about what are refugees doing here, or what is UNHCR doing here. That has been going on recently. That does give us worries and anxiety. And improvement, no, not in this part. I would say there is no improvement. One thing that is going on good is that government is trying to take over what UNHCR is doing. They are, I believe, I have read some reports that they are in process of learning the process, and eventually they want to take care of the refugees. So that is a positive move, I think, that may give later on, once the government is involved with refugees, then they may have some good reform.
Hamid also calls on the government to ratify the United Nations Refugee Convention to better protect refugees. However, even by not doing so, he suggests introducing some legal framework to address the refugees' basic needs that can greatly improve their well-being and help them to better contribute to society.
With just some legal framework, I think for education, we would like to have some kind of government plans for the refugee children to get an education, especially for the beginners. They can do something about the primary education and secondary for the children. Access to healthcare. Healthcare is important. We are getting, as I mentioned before, 50% discount, but that is not a lot. If somebody is going through a heart surgery or cancer treatment, it's still a lot of money. We should have employment. I mean, there is if a foreign worker can come work on a work permit, why not refugees? I'm pretty sure when they will work by paying taxes, they will help government in that sense, economically, and they will have a better life with the better financial finances because of making money. I mean, regardless of nationality or race or legal status, I think we should be living together in a peaceful environment, recognize each other and respect each other. And lastly, I just want to say that I often say is that we are also human beings with all the basic rights.
On to the international front, Canadian and American search teams are racing against time to find a tourist submarine that went missing during a dive to the wreck of the Titanic. Contact with the small submersible was lost about an hour and 45 minutes into its dive to the wreck site on Sunday. 5 people are on the vessel, including Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Suleiman. British billionaire Hamish Harding and French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet are reported to be on board. Stockton Rush, chief executive of OceanGate, the firm behind the dive, is also widely reported to be on board. The U.S. Coast Guard said that the vessel had the capacity to be submerged for 96 hours, but it was unclear whether it was still underwater or had surfaced and was unable to communicate. The wreck of the Titanic is located about 600 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. The submersible would have taken 2 hours to descend to the Titanic, which lies 3.8 kilometers below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Finland's newly elected parliament has voted in favor of National Coalition Party NCP leader Petteri Orpo to become prime minister. The move ushers in a right-wing government, ending the rule under Social Democrat government led by Sanna Marin.
Orpo will lead a coalition comprising the conservative NCP, Nationalist Finns, minority language Swedish People's Party, and the Christian Democrats, which together won a majority of parliamentary seats in the election on April 2nd. Orpo had campaigned on a promise to reduce the government's budget deficit by cutting spending, while reducing taxes and boosting jobs in the private sector. Under the new ruling coalition, Finland would also see shifts to the country's immigration policy, aiming to cut refugee quotas and make it more difficult for foreigners to obtain citizenship.
In other news, French police are searching the headquarters of the organizers of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. It is not yet clear what prompted the raids, but the organizing committee said they will fully cooperate with the investigators.
Reports in French media suggest financial police are involved as part of a probe into suspected corruption. They link the raids to earlier preliminary probes into how the contracts have been awarded. Raids were reportedly carried out at the headquarters of the committee and at the offices of Solideo, the body in charge of the Olympic construction sites. They were carried out by anti-corruption and financial crime investigators and the BRDE, the financial brigade of the Parisian police. The 2024 Olympics is set to take place from July 26 to August 11th, with the Paralympics running in September.
The UN has adopted the world's first treaty to protect the high seas, marking a milestone after nearly 20 years of effort. The landmark deal is aimed at conserving marine life and reducing harmful activity across 2/3 of the ocean that lie beyond national jurisdiction.
Following more than 15 years of discussions, including 4 years of formal negotiations, UN member states finally agreed on the text of the High Seas Treaty in March. The agreement will be open for signature in New York for 2 years starting September 20th. Countries must now ratify it as quickly as possible to bring it into force. According to the UN, it will enter into force once 60 countries have ratified it. The pact is a key element in efforts to put 30% of the world's land and sea under environmental protection by 2023. The legally binding agreement would also govern the sharing of benefits from marine genetic resources beyond national jurisdiction and the creation of protected areas on the high seas. It would also establish a framework for assessing environmental damage.
That wraps up Awani Tonight. I'm Fana Sheikh. Thank you for watching.